Look, I'm not really romantic and I haven't thought too much about the Milky Way, but this month I decided to make an exception for both. Well, I'm still not really that romantic, but I did spend Valentine's Day in Quebec with my husband, so that's cute. We road trip to Quebec City, attended the Winter Carnival, ate way too much, and then made our way to the mountains to wipe out on a snowboard. Well, I wiped out on a snowboard. It was on the second day with a face full of snow and a frozen butt cheek that I sat on Mont Bromont staring up past the trees. I had landed so hard on my tailbone that I needed a breather, so I took a moment, stared up at the sky, and ended up thinking of the Weaver Girl. Mostly because my butt hurt so much that I was wishing she would make me snow pants from clouds so I wouldn't go home covered in bruises, which frankly I did. As I waited for the pain to pass, her story played out in my mind, and I wish I'd been staring at the night sky instead. I'd always loved a good night sky, but never thought too hard about the stars themselves. The first time I really thought about the stars was when I was a little kid and my brother was gifted a telescope. He was so excited that I couldn't help but be excited too. He told me about the Milky Way and where we were, and of this whole expanse that drifts out endlessly into space. Recently, I attended a Nat Geo Live on a similar topic and felt like I was that little kid again being amazed by the utter expanse of the universe. Frankly, I think humans need that sometimes to be reminded how tiny we are and how beautiful it is out there. Though I didn't pursue much astronomy based education over the years, I did develop a deep love for celestial mythology. I have a weakness for creation myths, but an even deeper weakness for celestial deities. I love the idea of moving the stars, forming bridges between the heavens, and living embodiments of the sun and moon. Though this is probably a more appropriate story for late summer, I decided I wanted to dedicate February to the Weaver Girl and Cowherd, partially because Valentine's Day put love stories in my mind, and partially because I desperately wanted those snow pants. So I was thinking of her anyways. The story goes that the youngest of seven sisters in the celestial court was a weaving princess that created clothes from the clouds. With the permission of the celestial mother, the Weaver Girl descended from the court to the mortal world, where she and her sisters explored Earth's beauty. It was during their time floating in a river that she encountered the cowherd, a young man that was encouraged by his bull to approach the Weaver Girl despite his nervousness. He saw the sisters use their robes to fly back to the heavens, so he hides the Weaver Girls and offers his own clothing to her. They fall in love, travel the world, and build a life together. She returns briefly to visit her family, but the celestial mother was unhappy at her disappearance and building a life with a mortal. The mother separates the worlds with a chasm in the sky, so the Weaver Girl and her partner are torn apart, unable to return to each other. The cowherd attempts to reach her, wading through the stars that continue to fill the expanse between them, and is unable to reunite with his partner. Eventually, during the Weaver Girl's mourning, the celestial mother agreed to let them reunite once a year by creating a bridge of magpies. The Weaver and cowherd cross the bridge and spend one night together every year hovering above the stars. It is this reunion that is celebrated in several festivals throughout China, Japan, and Korea. Though the story of the Weaver Girl and Cowherd gained immense popularity in the 1900s, the festival in China has been celebrated for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. Despite their popularity, though, I still wasn't able to find the original poem. A lot of sources credited the story to oral tradition in ancient China that was then supposedly written to the classics of poetry. This collection of ancient songs was said to be compiled in the 11th to 8th century BCE. The collection was popularized later in history on two separate occasions. The first in 5th to 3rd century BCE by Confucian's school of thought, and the second in the early 1900s during the folklore resurgence in China. By the 1950s, there was a storytelling tradition of the four great folk legends, one of them being that of the Weaver Girl and Cowherd. I found a couple translations of the poems but wasn't able to find the exact one I was looking for, which makes sense. Relying solely on English translations can be hard, as I found with the Icelandic Yule Cat. The only second language I know is the tiniest bit of French that allows me to order lunch in Quebec. Definitely not a helpful skill when looking into ancient texts. One translated collection of the odes gives a hint toward the tale, where the author provided the translation, "There is the Milky Way in heaven, which looks down on us in light, and the three stars together are the weaving sisters. passing in a day through 7 stages of the sky. It is said that the classic oral tradition accompanied the song with visuals and performance. Some argue the impact of full context is lost in writing only. I don't know if this counts, but the TED-Ed retelling by Shannon Zhao and its accompanying animation were completely mesmerizing. It was this retelling that I based the video on. Some other versions differ on whether the Weaver Girl was a daughter of the emperor or worker in the palace. They tell tales of the cowherd seeing the Weaver Girl and her sisters bathing and taking her robe and her attempting to negotiate them back, of the Weaver Girl being taken to the Celestial Palace and others of her returning willingly. Though it was frustrating not being able to find a lot of tangible sources that specifically spoke of the Weaver Girl and Cowherd other than retellings, I couldn't help but be entranced by Zhao's descriptions. It is these types of flowing and magical prose that perpetuate my love of celestial folktales. It was R.F. Kuang who first reminded me about the Weaver Girl. She introduces her in her most recent book with the ethereal description, black hair so shiny it was reflective, drifting weightless around her waist. She floated within robes changing color as quickly as water dappled under sunlight. She describes the robes as reminiscent of a swarm of butterflies or sentient rosy clouds. The language in Kuang's description reminded me of reading The Daughter of the Moon Goddess or The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. There's something you can't quite touch in these stories, the blending of heavenly divinities with earthly mortals. There's a lack of solidity that makes it feel as though they're always existing outside of the world itself, as if a part of them is perpetually influenced by the skies and stars in which they come. Though the concept of eternal love felt thematic with February and its red-hearted decorations, I mostly wanted to talk about the Weaver Girl because I couldn't let go of the image of a woman pulling thread from the sky to weave silks, of a bridge of magpies that reunited the two worlds, if only for a moment. So for this month only, I suspended my non-romantic ways and looked at the stars to wonder if the Weaver Girl and Cowherd were still meeting every summer across the expanse of the Milky Way. And I hope they are, if only to remind myself that we are so small and it is so beautiful out there.